This is episode number 98 with Gwen Dittmar. Welcome to the Glow Life podcast. I'm your host, Martina Fink, holistic health and beauty coach, Glow Camp retreat host, and eco lifestyle lover. I'm here to inspire you to live a glowing life day in and day out because you deserve the best life ever. Every week, I'll be interviewing international influencers, wellness pioneers, and health and beauty experts who are using their special gifts to make a difference in the world so you can feel healthy, confident, empowered, and beautiful. Okay, let's glow, girl. Welcome back to the Glow Life podcast. So grateful that you are here today. I have spent a beautiful week in the Swiss mountains last week with my client who is from the mountains. And what my week looked like is this. I arrived on Sunday and we went to a breathwork class, which gave me a lot of clarity, and I had so many revelations and visualizations in that class. It was very intense, but very good. And this is actually also something that my guest today, Gwen, is an expert in. So that's kind of interesting. If you've never done breathwork before, I recommend you look into it. If you are ready to experience some deep transformations using your breath only, that's all you do. You just breathe for about an hour. Then I really want you to look into it because it's so interesting. It's so powerful. So much can be released. So much can be healed in just an hour of breathing. It's actually pretty powerful. There's that. Then I woke up to the most beautiful panoramic view every morning. I saw the mountains from my bed. It was so beautiful how the sun was kissing the mountains in the morning. Amazing view. If you haven't been to the Swiss Alps, you should definitely go or come to Switzerland. Every morning I made myself a smoothie. I had lots of tea, sat in the sun, meditated, journaled. We did a Monday morning yoga class on Monday, which was beautiful. On Tuesday, we went snowboarding on the magical glaciers. It was so fun. I haven't stood on a snowboard in many, many years, and I was a little nervous about it, but it's just like riding a bicycle. You kind of never forget how to do it if you've been able to do it in the past. So that was great. And as I was snowboarding down that glacier, or one of the glaciers we went on, I was kind of thinking to myself that this is something I want to do more of in my life again. When I was a child or a young girl, my grandma had an apartment in the mountains, and we would always go there every year for 2 weeks and snowboard and ski in the beginning. And yeah, it was kind of part of my life, and I completely lost that. I did spend lots of winters in the sun rather than in the snow, but I actually really love the snow, and it is something that I am for sure going to add onto my vision board for this new year, but also for my future in general, where I want to take my kids to skiing and snowboarding moving forward. So really excited about this kind of new discovery of a past or a part of my life that hasn't been very active. I also went for a solo dinner, had a pizza and a glass of rosé while I was attending a transformational workshop online on reprogramming your thoughts and your mind, which was really powerful. I kind of think the waiters were thinking, what is this person doing with her headphones, looking at her camera while eating her pizza? But yeah, it was great. It was a beautiful evening just for myself, personal development, loved it. Worked a little bit here and there, and then we took some work breaks, went for a walk in the snow. It was so beautiful. We had a spa evening together. My client and I, we did a coffee scrub, went to the sauna, which was infused with grapefruit and lemongrass scent, which is so nice, and then had a dinner together in like a very luxury, fancy Italian restaurant, which was so good. I had to take a photo and post it on Instagram, which is something I rarely do when I go to restaurants, unless I am in Bali, of course. So yeah, I think enjoying life really comes down to appreciating the little details that you can do every day. It's not about making everything fancy and crazy. I mean, of course, I did lots of fun things this week, but you could also just think, well, I went for dinner here and there. I worked, went for a walk, but like, it's how you go there. It's how you feel when you are there. It's how I felt when I was eating that pizza and drinking that glass of wine when I was watching a training and taking notes at the same time. It made me feel really fulfilled, right? It's how you feel when you're standing at the top of a mountain looking down and the view just pretty much takes your breath away. It's being present in those little moments that makes it special. And you can decide to make your everyday week super special. Change little things, add a scent to your morning practice or to your morning coffee, or like whatever it is, light the candle as you drink your tea. Little details that can really up level your experience of pleasure that you have every day. Practicing gratitude, tapping into the present moment, being there with yourself, whatever it is you're doing. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to share my top glow tip of the week with you, and that is to add something new and exciting onto your vision board for 2020. Like I mentioned before, snowboarding is going onto my vision board. It is something I would never have sat down and thought, oh, I really want to add this to my vision board. But it's something that I experienced this week, and that just felt really exciting and felt like, oh, this is a goal that I can add that I didn't think of before. So take some time to reflect, take some time to think, what is it that you could add to your vision board that maybe you didn't add in the past, or something that used to be part of your life that you've ignored for a couple of years, and then add that to your vision board. And now let's get started with my beautiful guest today, Gwen Dittmar. And I had the pleasure to meet her in person in LA and record this episode in person, which was so fun and so beautiful. Gwen is a coach and a breathwork guide and healer, offering practical and holistic soul medicine for life transformations, with over 12 years of experience in different avenues of coaching, wellness, trauma, sobriety, and more. In addition, Gwen has a master in spiritual psychology, is an Usui Reiki master, a certified teacher of David Elliott Breathwork, and is currently studying Shamanism. You can listen to Gwen coach clients on a myriad of business and life challenges in her podcast, The Beautiful Grid. Her coaching tips and tools have been featured in the wellness spaces like Well and Good, as well as the practical spaces such as Forbes. In today's episode, we talk about how intuitive gifts work and how you can use them, the power of breathwork and ancestral healing, how to heal with soul medicine and ceremonies, how to access your own healer within, and so much more. And you can find everything we talk about today in the show notes at martinafink.com/podcast/98. Welcome, Gwen, back to the podcast. So happy to have you again. And I'm recording live from LA with you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It was so great to have breakfast with you earlier, and we had lots of deep conversations about life and spirituality. So we're going to record a summary or parts of what we discussed in the morning. And one of the things we talked about was shamanism. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a shaman or anyone talk about shamanism on the podcast before. So can you give us an introduction about what shamanism is and what someone who is a shaman, the kind of work that they do?
This is my understanding. It may not be totally accurate, but my understanding is that, a shaman is somebody that works with not only just the human plane, which is like the third dimension. It's where most of us think that we're living and that we're breathing and that we're working and loving. They work with other dimensions. So they work with dimensions that are, let's say, above this human dimension. And then they work with dimensions that are below this human dimension. So, I was raised Catholic. So for me, when I first heard below this human dimension, I thought, oh, that's like, where the old like Catholic stories of like hell and like bad things happen. And so for me, it was really healing to start studying, shamanism and learning more about it, that those realms underneath are really like the plant and the animal realms. And then the realms above us are more of the light beings, the angels and the guides and the masters and, different dimensions of time and different grids and layers of light. So shamans work within other realms than just on this human plane. And sometimes that shows up in different types of gifts. It could be, psychic gifts that come in forms of like clairaudience or clairvoyance or clairsentience or claircognizance, or it could come in auras or colors. It could just come in like direct knowing. It could come in mediumship or channeling. So there's all different types of ways, but that, the core of shamanism, there's all different types of shamanism. So there's different cultural shamanisms and like different lineages of shamanism. I think most typically what most people, like if they're on Instagram or they're on some type of social media, the internet, what they tend to think that it is it's like plant medicine or going to ayahuasca ceremonies or, types of circles, but that there's all different types of lineages. So that's more of like a plant medicine shaman. And then there's other ones that work with the realms of light. And then there's, again, different cultures. So there could be like African, there could be Eastern European, there could be Nordic, there could be Siberian, like Russian, etc. There's all different types. But at the core of all of them is that there's usually some type of ceremony. There's some type of like drumming. There's some type of dancing. There's some type of way of channeling and connecting with these other realms that happens through whatever form that lineage uses to connect. So even like, let's say Native American, we were talking about you having this affinity for Native American culture, is that, a lot of that was like through like dancing and through ceremony and through sweats, of sometimes there can be this extreme experience that allows you to connect to these other realms, because if we stay really comfortable and grounded in this human realm, it can feel uncomfortable for our humanness to move up into other layers or to travel down into other layers. So I don't know if that
Interesting.
gives you
Yeah.
an idea.
Can you talk about lineage a little bit? I know, I'm sure some people don't know what a lineage is and how that exactly works. What exactly would you describe as a lineage?
I think there's all different types. So there's, me as like my human self and my familial lineage of like the people that I came from. And then there's probably even expanded into that. There's like ancestral lineage. So maybe dating even farther back, or like we were also talking about at breakfast, how, 23andMe, these more, DNA tests can start to show you like where your quote unquote lineage is actually coming from. And so what I've found for a lot of people is once they work through a lot of the human realm, suffering and unresolved issues, then they are able to start working more into like lineage and like ancestral healing. And then if you take it even farther, we all share this other lineage, which is the collective conscious of just humans on this earth, and all of the pain and the suffering and the beautiful, the beauty that comes from the human collective. So you can start healing that too, even in your own personal healing work that you're doing when you're laying down to do whatever form of healing you do. And it's interesting, I personally don't call myself a shaman. I've been studying for a while, but I really do feel like it is not particularly my lineage to call myself that, just because I associate that with more of like a different type of lineage, and I haven't studied enough from my own ancestral and familial lines of that type of shamanism and that type of in that part of the world to be able to feel like that's something that I would call myself that. So,
Mm.
instead of really saying shamanism, I say more of the term of soul medicine, or light working, or just working with beings of light or spirits of light, whether it be in the upper realms or the lower realms, because I think sometimes it can be very easy to get caught up in the title that we call ourselves, or the words that we use to associate who we are, and really we're none of it. It's great for marketing purposes or Instagram handles or a website to say this is who I am, this is what I do, or this is just how I be in the world. But really, it's more about, yeah, like just the energy that I bring to the conversations and to like the interactions and the exchanges that I have with other humans in this plane and other planes, and working with those other beings of light.
Yeah, it's interesting. The thing about the ego is something that I see come up a lot in, I don't know if this is just in Europe or in the online space for sure, where people say, like, oh, I'm a business coach, I'm a health coach, I'm a yoga teacher. And like, this is their identity. My identity used to be I'm a store manager. And then I became a health coach. And today, like when people ask me, what do you do? And I say I'm a health coach, they think I teach nutrition, and it may be part of it, but it's not really. And I don't identify with like health coach being a nutrition because it's not really the work that I do. So it's hard to somehow explain what is it that I really do, and like find your own identity when you cannot just hold on to this title that it describes what exactly you do. And yeah, so I think it's an interesting question that, oh, we like to call ourselves something. We like to, or our ego probably likes to, be put in a box and know exactly what you do and who you are.
And I do, I've listened to Shaman Durek's podcast, and I do feel that on some level it is valuable to name who you are and like what you do, because we are, as much as all of, a lot of us want to like be in the love and in the light and in these other realms. Like the reality is that you're in a human body, you're in a human vehicle, you're in a human vessel, and you have a human life. So it's like, let's use that for all that it is. And sometimes it is helpful to say, oh, I work with soul medicine. I, coach people. I like in practical and esoteric ways. I help people heal themselves. I'm a breathwork guide. I'm a teacher, a writer. But I'm also, a mother, and I'm also a woman, and I'm also a sensual being, and I'm also a daughter, and there's just so many things that make up the humanness. And like you were sharing, that if I attach myself to one of those things as being, who I am or my worth, that's when I feel like it can get into trouble, or it can get a little sticky. However, if you just use those as a way to say, like, yes, this is one of the aspects of my humanness. However, like, who am I inside? Who am I above? Who am I like in the periphery all around? Who am I underneath? And who is that's looking out? And what is that essence wanting to create through being the mother or the sister, the daughter, the coach, the healer? It's fascinating. And
Mm.
allowing myself to surrender into that, like, okay, I'm gonna channel its source, spirit, whatever word people, even people don't believe in any of that, and they like the ocean or the sun or the universe and the galaxies. I just want to be a channel for that to come through. And sometimes that comes through being a woman that dissolved a marriage. And sometimes that comes through being a daughter that grieved and watched her mother pass away. And sometimes it comes through being a mother and finds a beautiful little note in my wallet today, like we saw at breakfast. And it's just rich, when you can live in that space. There's so much like love that just starts to pour. And then that love gets to be what you ripple out into the world, whether it be through your line of health coaching and then like the spiritual awakening that happens through the health coaching or through the yoga or through the podcast.
Mm, so interesting. And it's funny you were talking about love, and I have seen so many signs since I've arrived in LA. Like the moment I got off the first Uber from the airport to the place here, I found like this, I don't know what it's called, but like you put the golf ball on it and it was pink and it had white hearts on it.
A golf
Yeah,
tee.
yeah. And then today I was walking to meet you, and on the street there was this sign that says "Go with the flow." And then I saw another love written on the floor somewhere on the way, and I was like, "This is
And you do
insane."
notice behind you, did you turn around and see
Yeah,
what's
the
behind
heart.
you?
Yeah,
It's hovering over your shoulder right now.
yeah.
Your
It's like,
left shoulder, by the way, too, which
oh,
is
my
the
receiving
feminine side.
hand.
Yes.
Very good. I love that. So yeah, it's really interesting. I was thinking this morning as I was walking to meet you, the signs, like people can sometimes think you're crazy. You're just, those are just things. But like sometimes there are so many signs in such a short amount of time where you're like, this cannot be a coincidence. Like, no, just no, that there is something trying to communicate.
And
Um,
I had a coach once say to me, somebody in like a group coaching asked the coach, "How do you know whether that stuff is real or not? Or it's just a figment of your imagination or it's a self-fulfilling prophecy?" And the coach answered in such a beautiful way. He said, who cares what it is? Who cares if it's real? Who cares if it's not real? If it lands inside of you and it makes you feel good and it brings about this experience of love or connectedness or, wow, I'm not alone, like something's here. Who cares whether it's real or not?
right.
Like it's landing inside of you and it's eliciting an experience of being connected and being in love. And like that's what I think everybody is really searching for in the human experience is to feel connected and to feel love
For
at the
sure.
core of everything.
Yeah.
It's like, why do people want to get, health coaching? Why do people want to feel better in their body? It's like, why do people want to feel like they've quote unquote lost weight or they're looking healthy? Is because they want to feel connected to themselves. And that when they feel connected to themselves and really like in love with themselves and their body, then they're able to connect with others and feel in love with others.
Yeah, I agree. It's at the core of everything. Like we do everything for our own love, but also to receive love from others.
Like that exchange of giving and receiving.
Yeah.
hmm
You talked about the psychic abilities. I'd love to explore those more. Maybe you talk about the different ways that someone can be psychic or have psychic abilities or receive psychic insights. What I get a lot is clairsentience, which is that you feel someone's energy. So sometimes I have calls with clients and they're like stressed out about something or frustrated or sad or angry, whatever. And then I ask them to close their eyes and feel into their body. And I literally feel in my body what they're going through or where the blockage is in their body. And obviously, it's always connected to the chakra, whatever. If they're not loving themselves, it's probably in the heart. If they're talking about an emotional experience or a trauma, it's probably in their sacral chakra. If they're having lots of worries about money and finances and they're feeling unsafe, it's probably in their root chakra. And it's very interesting. And it took me a while to actually acknowledge that I actually can feel those things. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just making this up. But I feel the more you're connected to yourself, the more you're open to receiving those kind of messages or
hmm
feelings or yeah. So can you talk about the other three psychic abilities that people can have?
Yeah, and I would say to what you were just sharing that yeah, if you're grounded in your own energy, if you're like a master of your own energy, if you know like how fear feels in your body, if you know how sadness, if you know how joy, if you know how like intuition, if you know how clairsentience feels, if you've taken time to learn how all those different energies feel in your body, then you'll be able to decipher whether somebody's energy is theirs or it's your energy. And that's really so helpful when people are doing work, service work, whether it's healing or coaching with other people, is because a lot of times, if you're an empath or if you're an intuitive or you have just a sensitive, open energy field, you could be picking up on a lot of things that are maybe not yours, that, being able to master that energy and attune to it will allow you to even be greater service to others, because you'll be able to say like, "Ooh, gosh, like that nausea in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, what is that? No, I don't think that's mine. That's not how mine feels when I'm not grounded in myself." Or that's not how nausea sometimes shows up, like with like money stuff too. It's like, no, that's not my money stuff. I think it's this individual, or I think it's this person in my sphere, or I'm picking up and starting to tap into. I would say there's the clairsentience is definitely one. Clairvoyance is when people see images or see things. And then clairaudience is when they hear things. And claircognizance is when they just kind of know things. And for a long time, I thought I just like had access to clairsentience, like I really felt things. But the more that I've been opening and the more that I've been attuning to the different energies, the more that I'm waking up to that I have had clairaudience there, and I have had claircognizance. I have clairvoyance like sometimes, but it usually comes through those other three more often than not. And it's interesting. When I was a kid, I was sick, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with me for a really long period of time. But now, in retrospect, obviously, I can see things more clearly as to what was happening, and I was always very, I guess, like psychic as a little kid, but I didn't never knew what to do with it or how to harness it. And so, there in my teens, I started to get tons of ringing, tons of tendinitis in my ears, and I was starting to have these like major vertigo spells. And so, now looking back on it, there was a clairaudience that was opening, but it's like my body was either scared of it, didn't know what to do with it, or it just was too much for my body and for my consciousness at that time. So there was just all this dissonance going on in my body. And, I was seeing a lot of visions at that time in my life. And again, didn't know what to do with it, was very scared of it. And so, I think it just started to land in my body in more of a dis-ease than a gift channeling through. So, for me, over my lifetime and my healing journey, I've really learned that there have been layers of either generations before me or just my own past lives and my own past experiences in different human bodies and different human lives, that I was, a medicine woman. I was working with soul medicine, whether it looked like, a shaman, or it looked like a medicine woman, or it looked like a priestess, or it looked like a witch. Oftentimes it was a witch. And so, that wound was kind of still in my energy field, and really basically begging to be looked at and to be healed, so that I could start speaking and know that it was safe to speak, that I could start downloading and know that it was safe to download, and know that I could hold all of that energy and really learn how to start holding all of that energy, so that it didn't have to throw me into this massive vertigo spell, which was how it was showing up when I was younger.
Mm.
And I work with a lot of women who are probably tend to be a little bit more on the high achieving end, and really opening to a new realm of learning how to work with their masculine and feminine energies, and reclaiming their energy and their heart and their soul and their work and their life. And so, a lot of them do have these gifts, It's just they've never known what to do with it, or they've been confused about, is it my energy or other people's energy? And it's just so amazing to see what happens when they're able to start healing some of that witch wounding and start to speak up and let all of that light and that all of those gifts out that they have inside.
So,
It's like magic.
so interesting. And I think I probably have some of these clients too that are just learning to, like, let's say first step, trust their intuition, even hear their intuition. I know some clients do have some like they're very intuitive and
Empathic, yeah.
empathic,
Hmm.
but then it's so easy to get scared, to get pulled back into the masculine world of like high achieving perfectionist, like I have to work, I have to have this job, rather than being open to explore, because you cannot work full time and think that you will be able to open up energetically and emotionally if you don't have time for it. Like this, it takes time to be able to tap into your intuition and to connect with your higher self or spirit guides or whatever there is. And you can't just like push a button and then you're there. It takes practice and lots of work
It's like
to,
any other muscle. So it's
yeah.
like somebody wants to run a marathon, they need to set up like a 3 month or a 6 month training schedule to like build into 3 miles, 5 miles, or kilometers, for
Yes,
those
in
in
Europe.
Europe. And yeah, and it's this is like any other muscle. It just take and I also say it's like a muscle, and it's also like a relationship. So relationships build over time, and trust builds over time, and intimacy and vulnerability and connection builds over time. Like depth builds over time in a relationship, so that all of these, whether you want to call it soul medicine or light work or right, tapping into your guides, tapping into your own medicine inside of you, your breath, all of that is a relationship, and to really honor the pace and the timing of relationship.
It takes patience. I think
Hmm.
lots of people, or especially women nowadays, or the women, maybe it's just the women that I work with, are have a tendency to be impatient and to, wanting to get the things now and getting there now and understanding now, which is not really how it works. You have to really be patient and, like you said, build that relationship and that trust over time.
I mean, that's like the feminine. I mean, when I, got pregnant with my first child, it's like, yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much time. I have like 9 months. Wow. And it's really great for me to even reflect on that and remind my cells and my body and remind myself that like beautiful, like amazing miracles also can take time. And I'm also open to spontaneous, like miraculous healing.
Of course.
Sometimes things can lift and clear in an instant.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a bit more about the witch wound? I think lots of or some people listening may not know what exactly that is, or even what a witch is, or how that relates to us, something that happened hundreds of years ago.
Well, yeah. And I think, what we think of a witch is, right, like this woman with the cauldron and,
Yeah,
but really witch just is, a medicine. It's a medicine woman. And she was connected to, the cauldron is because she was connected to plants, and herbs and medicine from the earth. And I read something interesting that, the broom analogy of the woman, flying on the broom, the witch on the broom, it really comes from that women were, the broom is somewhat of like a phallic symbolism, that women were so connected to their sensuality. It was like they knew how to take pleasure and just like fly into other realms with it. And so, if you dial down quote unquote witch into, mysticism and magic and miracles and just pleasure of the feminine divine, and connecting to Mother Earth and working with Earth and putting feet on Earth and dancing on Earth. It's just all of that has to do with the quote unquote witch, and that a lot of women are rising to the surface that maybe in other lifetimes were witches, and it was not safe to speak up. It was not safe to have your medicine. It was not safe to share your medicine with others or on a global or, a communal way. And things happened to women for doing that. They were burned, they were hung, they were pillaged. And so now it's really for women. What I see is that a lot of times it happens through the voice. So it's like scared to really speak up, scared to speak your truth, scared, like whether it's relationship or work or a company or with bosses or with investors. And learning to say to that part of ourselves, it's okay this time. It's safe this time. You can use your voice. I'm here. Like, I love you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to call in people around you that will be able to support you and help you. And, it's fascinating. I can see it a lot of times in breath work. It shows up in like women, like their jaw will get really tight or they'll get a lot of red. Their skin will turn really red while they're breathing. Their mouths will oftentimes purse up and like get really tight. And sometimes even like in the throat too. It's just because that old entity, that old energy came down in through their crown chakra or like up through their root, and it just kind of got locked. Like the heart wasn't really able to come up and out of the throat, and source was not able to come down through the third eye and out through the throat. And so, it's really encouraging women to just start speaking their truth, whether it's just with somebody, one person that feels safe to them, or writing it in a way that feels safe to them, or starting to slowly share with a community that feels very safe to them. I think that's why, you have groups. And I know that that's why I love the groups that I do, is because women start to have this experience of like this safe, sacred container to really be all of who they are and to let that start to come up and out of the throat, to let their words on paper be seen by other people and know that they're safe and know that it's going to be okay this time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to talk more about ceremonies and, like getting together in circles. I see lots of circle events and I host my glow circles. I host my retreats where we're sitting in circles and doing work together. And I have my group programs where we do things together in groups, and it's so powerful, like the energy that can come up from an event like that. Like every time I get so blown away by the power that we can create together. It's almost something that I've never experienced, and I feel like I'm creating these circles out of my own wounding of not being part of, the cool kids and not being part of a group where I felt like I belong. So I wanted to create this space for others to make sure that they belong and that they have a circle where they can feel good. And yeah, I never knew how much power can come out of a group and how much support and love can be created in women when they get together. And it's something so unique and so wonderful.
And I'm very introverted, even though I seem extroverted. And I'm, a manifester in like human design. So I do a lot better when I'm by myself. But what I've learned is that I've been able to like hold that in a different way, that I can still be in a group and still honor my own unique energy. Because sometimes
Mm,
that comes up for me. I don't know about for you, but when people are interested in my group coaching, they'll say, "Oh, but I'm not really a group person. I do better with like one-on-one." And for me, what I've learned over time is that I do understand that. And there are times when I hire like a one-on-one coach or a one-on-one guide. And at the same time, being in a group really, I don't want to say force because that's not the energy that I want to bring to it, but it's like it nudges And it like invites us into being seen by others and to receiving feedback and to giving feedback and to like really holding in that voice energy of being seen by others, being taken care of by others, especially,
Mm.
for women that tend to be the caretaker, or they're the friend that has all the answers in their group, or, they're always the one taking care of other people. It can feel really scary for them to come into a group because then other people are going to see who they really are, and they're going to start to be known that way, and it disrupts what their identity. It disrupts who they think they are.
Mm.
So there's so much learning that can come, like you said, from the group. And I love it. I love it too. And it's starting to reclaim this energy of circle, that like one person is not necessarily above, or like the old energy of maybe like patriarchy of like I'm leading this and you're my followers. But it's more, even if there's somebody who's holding the space, right? Like for instance, if you're holding the space, you're creating the container for people, but you step in the circle and you're in the circle. You're not sitting there and everybody's underneath of you.
Mm.
So I think it's starting to shift an energy of how we show up with teachers and with students and with mentors and mentees, and learning and being able to really learn from it, from the shared experience. And that ceremony aspect is so sacred that I think people have been missing, like as a human tribe, we've in a collective conscious, we've been missing, and
Yeah.
we've been looking for. And it's like maybe we were looking for it in work or in like bars and like social scenes, or but like it's really that sacredness of humans sitting around a fire and telling stories and being seen and being witnessed and being heard and understood. It's like that is medicine for humans.
Mm. So beautiful. And it's something, human connection cannot be replaced by an iPhone and social media, although you can have so many followers and so many people that you love, that love you and that you love too. Um, it doesn't replace, like nothing can replace actual human connection.
Yeah, and I was hesitant because like, I have my moon circles and the breathwork circles, and I love that in-person energy. And at first I was a little hesitant to do quote unquote a virtual group. But I just thought to myself, maybe I have my own limiting beliefs here, and maybe there's something that I need to open up to, because we are being given this gift of connection through technology and through like
Mm.
virtual connection. So how can I open up to that? How can I open up to that light work? And it's just been amazing to even see women who were in the group coaching that, when I send out a survey afterwards, I ask them, what's your experience of the virtual group? And they said that most of them say at first, I didn't think it would be as potent
Yeah.
as being in person, but I think there still gets to be this level of connection when you can see each other's faces, over the Zoom call or whatever platform people use, and really get to connect to like who somebody is and what's at their core.
Can you tell us more about the breath work you do and how impactful that can be for someone's healing?
I love breath work. I mean, it has
Me too.
I know you do. It has changed my life. And for me, like I think there's just something so powerful about it being inside of me, and your breath is inside of you. And my client Susie Joe over there, like her breath is inside of her. And so that learning how to access your own healer within, learning how to access your own wisdom and your own, and mastering your own energy. I mean, I was just with my breathwork teacher this past weekend assisting one of the healer trainings, and his name is David Elliott. And he was sharing that, at the core of like this particular breathwork practice that I use, which comes through him, is that you're learning about your own energy and really, really attuning to your own energy. So you're noticing like, wow, that's how fear feels. That's how rejection feels. That's how abandonment feels. That's how trauma feels. That's how sexual abuse, whether it was physical or whether it was psychic, that's how it feels. And that's how it shows up and landed in my body. That's how, love feels. That's how joy feels. That's how bliss feels. And that's how deep healing feels, or even just ancestral. That's how ancestral healing feels in my own body. And then the more attuned you become to your own energy, like we talked about earlier, just like the more embodied you are and the more empowered you are, because then you know whether something is yours or it's not yours. And, for me, I've been able to clear so many things that I thought that I had cleared. We were talking about that at breakfast of like, wait, why is this thing coming back around again?
Mm.
And it's not that somebody has done something wrong. It's not that they didn't do something good enough. They didn't heal good enough. They didn't like do the right thing. It's just that may be your soul's learning line. Like that may be your soul medicine in this lifetime. It may come through relationship. It may come through money. It may come through family stuff. It may, who knows? But you'll start to be able to decipher, because something will circle back around, and
Mm.
if it does, if it circles back around and it feels the same way, then you just know that that layer maybe wasn't cleared up or wasn't really healed or released. And so you have an opportunity to step into it again. Or a lot of times what happens for people, and this happens for me, is like it will come back around, but it's kind of like the rings in a tree. So if you slice the tree and you
Mm.
see the rings, it's not, and you make like one line through those rings, it's like I healed the layer of like family and love and the witch wound at that first ring, in my life. And then it came back around and I healed like that next layer of it.
Yeah.
And then the next layer and the next layer. And then usually it's like when we get to the center of the tree is like when we're complete and we leave this human vehicle and we transition into, another realm before maybe we come back into something else. And so, for me, breath work has been that experience of being able to heal at each of these layers and to attune and master my energy, and how to pull and clear energies, entities that are not mine out of my energy field, out of my body, out of my head and my heart and my belly and my womb. And so that I can have all of my own energetic space for my breath to really move through. Because when it does, then it stops feeling hard. It starts to feel a little bit easier. It starts to feel a little bit gentler. There's more of that self-love that starts to just naturally pour through and cycle through, because you've pulled out all of this energy that's not yours, and you're tapped into just cycling your own energy through and universal energy through you, and it just starts to like pour out.
So interesting. It's what I love about breathwork too. Like you don't need to do anything. I mean, you need to breathe. That's all you
Right.
need to do. But
Work your
even,
breath.
yeah, you work on your breath and you don't need to talk about anything. You don't need to consciously try to resolve a problem. You're just there and you just breathe and you just see what happens and you surrender. Like the last time I did breathwork, my hands I got such a cramp in my hands. I couldn't move and I was really scared of losing control. But I also had to tell myself, like, all I can do is just trust what this woman told me. She said it's normal that this happens, and that when that happens, you just need to surrender and let go and know that it's going to go back to normal again.
And like that's your medicine in that moment. Like I always say to people, like whatever comes up in the breath work, like say yes to it. Like just like open to it, because it's your body, it's your mind, it's your heart, it's your energy's way of communicating with you and saying like, oh, there's something here. There's something in the hands. Like I want you to see, I want you to know, I want you to breathe into this. And so it's like the more you breathe into it, the more you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to, like I'm scared to let go of control. And so it's like, ooh, that's the medicine right there. Like, oh, okay, like what if I breathe in and really let go?
Yeah, it's
Then what
powerful.
happens, like if I breathe through that hand and I find myself on the other side. And the more that you move through that breath work experience, the more you have like um, I guess, a grounding or like a trust with yourself and with your breath and whatever comes forward. It doesn't mean that it's always comfortable.
I can guarantee it's not.
I mean, I even this past weekend, I've been breathing for, I don't know, 3 years. And, this past weekend, I like hit one of those levels where I was just like, and my like whatever that entity was, or if it was like ego, it gets very, very crafty and it gets
Oh,
very
yeah.
smart the more fine-tuned your path becomes. And it was just like it kind of took me into this beautiful, like esoteric, light-filled, traveling different dimensions type of experience. And and I kind of like went in and out, and um afterwards I realized I was just like, there's something that I'm just like I'm bumping up against.
Mm.
And I didn't make myself wrong. I didn't say like, "Oh, you're the breathwork guide. You should not be doing that." I just was like, "Okay, I'm just going to trust that, I exactly what was supposed to happen happened, and tomorrow I can lean into and be open to if it feels ready." And it totally did. And I was able to heal like another one of those layers of like my own like psychic sexual trauma and like my own like relationship, and just start to heal and peel back all of those energies that are not mine and clear them out. So just to trust too, if somebody's listening and they're leaning into breath work, that your body and your breath will know exactly where to take you for what you're available for, and to trust and to lean into that. But also it is work. It's why it's not called breath relaxation.
Exactly.
It's called breath
Breath
work.
work.
Is because you are going to be working your breath
I love that.
and pulling all those entities out.
Yeah. Powerful. Okay, I have a couple of quick questions before
Okay.
we wrap up. What has been your most memorable trip?
Traveling like on a plane.
Doesn't need to be traveling on a plane, but like going somewhere.
Going somewhere. I would probably say the first things when you like right when you said the word before my brain got involved would be either when I went to Ghana, or when I went to Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, both. Ghana, I went there for about 3 weeks, I think, to do like some mission work, and to just I was pretty much volunteering the whole time, which was really, really magical. And then when I went to Japan, I had my plane ticket to and from, and I had one hotel, my first night of a hotel, and I had no idea what I was going to do the rest of the
Ooh,
2 weeks.
freedom.
So it was just amazing to really surrender into kind of the Celestine prophecy opportunity of who am I going to meet on that first day, and where am I going to stay that second night, and then where am I going to stay the third night? What am I going to do the fourth night? It's pretty magical.
Amazing. What is your favorite quote?
I would probably say there's one that's about that, the gem can't get polished unless there's like some grit.
Mm,
Like the gem, I forget who said it or what exact quote, but I'm sure if somebody Googles it, they'll be able to find it. But, for me, it's really like that the grittiness is so beautiful and so exquisite because it allows us to polish that gem into something
yeah.
brilliant and radiant and light filled.
Beautiful crystal.
Hmm.
Love it. If there was one thing that you could take with you on a desert island, what would it be?
My first thought was like my kids, but then that would be two. So I couldn't bring it. I'm like, I don't know if I would ever be able to choose between either one of them. So I'm like,
Well,
then I can't be my kids.
we can accept that. You can
Okay.
bring two things. What is your favorite book that you think everyone should read?
One that I recommend to a lot of clients is called Power versus Force. And but I believe it's by David Hawkins. And I really love it because he's a MD. I believe he's also a PhD, and he did a lot of research. So it has a lot of practical, I think that the human self can relate to, but then that does have a lot of spiritual and conscious and more esoteric, where it's really about learning how to use your power versus force, which at the core of it is love. So it's a great book for my male clients. It's a great book for female clients who tend to be pretty driven. And I think it's great for people that are just open, because it can communicate on both realms, both the practical and the esoteric.
What are 3 things you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful for being here with you.
Yeah, me too.
I'm grateful for, and along with that, just connections with just amazing humans from all over the world. And I'm also grateful for my children and for them just being happy and healthy and grounded in themselves. And I'm grateful for my connection to myself and to love and to source, and to feel like I'm doing what I was put here on this earth to do. There's really not much better than that. And then my kids.
Beautiful. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Follow the curiosity, because your curiosity will lead you
I love it.
back to your soul.
Beautiful.
And even if you're scared, just trust that if you're having that curious thought, that that's your soul's way of communicating with you and inviting you back in.
Like the signs. Yeah. Listen to them. Where can people find you online and your work?
They can find me at Gwen Dittmar. It's GwenDittmar, 2 T's. And they can also find me on Instagram at Gwen Coach. And I also have a podcast. We were chatting about that earlier. It's called The Beautiful Grit.
Beautiful. And we'll share all of those links in the show notes, and also, your online breathwork classes if anyone wants to join. I think those would be great. Thank you.
I work privately and within groups.
And you are sometimes in different places as well.
I am, yes.
So exciting. So we need you to come to Europe.
I want to come.
Yes, let me know when, and we'll share it with the entire community.
Yes, because I was sharing with you earlier, I have a client in the Netherlands, and I have some other clients that are in Germany and London, and they have been just like, when are you coming?
Yes. Okay, we need to talk about this after the episode. Thank you so much
Thank you for having me,
taking the time, and for sharing your knowledge.
And thank you for following your soul's invitation and doing this podcast, sharing your heart with others.
Thank you.
Okay.
What a beautiful and inspiring episode with Gwen. If you enjoyed it as well, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave me a review so that even more people can listen to these inspirational stories Gwen and I shared today. For everything we mentioned on today's episode, you can go check out the show notes at martinafink.com/podcast/98. I would love to connect with you on social media. You can find me at Martina Glows on Instagram and Facebook. And if there is anyone in your life that you think would enjoy this episode today, please send it to them right now. Thank you so much for being here today and for listening to our conversations. I really hope that this inspires you to live in so much more glowing life. You deserve to feel healthy, confident, empowered, and beautiful.